There's no such thing as an anti-war film. These are the words of François Truffaut, and there are different ways to interpret this remark, but it's widely agreed that Truffaut was suggesting that movies will inevitably glorify combat when they portray the adventure and thrill of conflict. When Truffaut made this comment, he was referring to Stanley Kubrick's 1957 film, Paths of Glory, which is considered by many as the greatest anti-war film ever made. But in the same interview, Truffaut continues this remark. I find that violence is very ambiguous in movies. For example, some films claim to be anti-war, but I don't think I've really seen an anti-war film. Every film about war ends up being pro-war. I love a lot of the films that Truffaut is talking about. But the strange thing is, I don't entirely disagree with what Truffaut is saying. If you look at the science behind war movies and the effect they have on our brain, Truffaut is actually right in a lot of ways. Regardless of genre or subject matter, at their core, all films are created as a form of entertainment, and our minds are consciously aware of that, but it still reacts. In a study conducted at Washington University regarding the psychology of movies, Professor Jeff Zach states, "You know there is nothing up there on the screen that can touch you or hurt you or pull you out of your chair, but we react as if they can." This is where neurocinematics comes into the equation. Neurocinematics is an area of research that explores the impact of film on the human brain, combining insights from neuroscience, psychology, and film studies. A leader in this field of research is Yuri Hassan, whose work utilizes MRI scans to measure the brain activity of a subject whilst they view a movie. Hassan's studies reveal that certain films can exert considerable control over brain activity, with the degree of influence varying based on the film's content, editing, and directing style, meaning that directors can literally influence how our brain is working through their filmmaking choices. Filmmaking is an art form that literally lives and dies through its choices. It's controlled entirely by the intent of the filmmakers. Everything that's put on screen is put there intentionally, and it's done so with the intent of creating an emotional response. Right now you may be freely looking around your room, out the window, or at your coffee cup on your desk, but in cinema you can't do this. Everything we see is curated by a director. Every gunshot, every explosion, every drop of blood, and every tear is there because it was put there intentionally to elicit a response. And this is where we begin to enter a paradox. Because in the case of most anti-war films, the emotion that our brains respond with is adrenaline. The paradoxical effect anti-war films have on the human brain, particularly through the elicitation of adrenaline, underscores a complex psychological phenomenon. It's a strange thing, because even though these films aim to depict the horrors and futility of war, their intense and often graphic portrayals can inadvertently trigger the body's adrenaline response. This response, characterized by heightened physical and mental alertness, is not inherently negative. The rush of adrenaline, therefore, transforms a viewing experience into one of excitement and heightened engagement, regardless of a film's heavy subject matter. Consequently, an intended anti-war message may be overshadowed by the viewer's physiological and emotional response, illustrating the intricate interplay between film content, brain chemistry, and viewer perception. And I think there's a lot of films that claim to be anti-war that really fall victim to this. In fact, some of these films I really love. It saddens me to say it, but films like Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, Paths of Glory, and Dunkirk all lose their impact as anti-war films because fundamentally, they glorify it. Let's take a look at Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, for example. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite films, and for the longest time, I saw Full Metal Jacket as the embodiment of the anti-war genre, but it really isn't. The dehumanizing first and second halves of Full Metal Jacket definitely don't intend to paint a flattering picture of military life. Yet, R. Lee Ermey's abusive drill sergeant has become somewhat of a folk hero, and the 1,000-yard stare has come to signify badassery rather than an unwashable stain on one's soul. The action meant to simulate the dread and misery of war instead becomes riveting and addictive. So if none of these films are anti-war films, then what is? In 1998, whilst promoting his film Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg took opposition to Truffaut's comments. In fact, he stated the complete opposite. Any war movie, good or bad, is an anti-war movie. I don't think what Spielberg is saying here is right, but I think to disprove Truffaut's comments, we need to look at what exactly defines an anti-war film. And to do that, let's take a look at what many people consider the definitive anti-war film. Elem Klimov's Come and See. The film throws us into the abyss of World War II through the eyes of Floria, a Belarusian teenager eager to join the fight against the Nazis. But Come and See transcends the genre by wielding its visceral violence not for entertainment, but as a searing indictment of war's inhumanity. The film's brutality is unrelenting. Klimov doesn't shy away from depicting the unimaginable. Burning villages, mass executions, and the psychological torment inflicted on civilians are shown with a horrifying intimacy. This unflinching portrayal is born from Klimov's personal experiences. Klimov is a survivor of the Battle of Stalingrad. As a child, he and his family escaped the city by crossing the Volga in a makeshift raft. Having seen the devastation of war firsthand, he refused to sanitize it for the screen. Come and See doesn't portray war as the grand conquest for a just cause. It's about the erosion of innocence. Floria, initially wide-eyed with naive patriotism, transforms into a hollow shell. His youthful spirit is completely devoured by the carnage around him. This is where Come and See's anti-war message transcends other films. It doesn't offer catharsis through victory or the comfort of clear heroes and villains. Here, everyone is a victim caught in a maelstrom of violence. The film forces us to confront the true cost of war, not just in the lives that have been lost, but in the fracturing of humanity itself. This is why I think Come and See serves as a perfect benchmark for creating a criteria that defines whether a film is truly anti-war. So here's my criteria. Number 1, the film should avoid portraying war as a noble or heroic endeavor. Instead, it should focus on the senselessness and moral ambiguity of conflict. Number 2, the film must depict the widespread devastation caused by war, including the impact on civilians, soldiers, and the environment. Number 3, the film should be informed by the personal experiences of those who have lived through war, providing an authentic and unflinching perspective. And off the top of my head, I can only think of 2 other films that conform to this. Firstly is Larisa Shepitko's The Ascent, based on a novel by Belarusian writer Vasil Bykov. The film is set during World War II and follows 2 Soviet partisans as they struggle to survive whilst evading Nazi capture. The Ascent portrays the internal and external struggles of its characters without resorting to heroic tropes. The film's focus is on the moral dilemmas faced by the protagonists, highlighting the complexity and futility of their situation. The film vividly depicts the physical and psychological toll of war, with its harsh, snow-covered landscape serving as a powerful metaphor for the desolation and despair spread by conflict. Larisa Shepitko's father was a high-ranking officer in the military. When talking about her childhood, this is what she had to say. "My father fought all through the war. To me, the war was one of the most powerful early impressions. I remember feeling upset, the family separated. I remember hunger and how our mother and us were evacuated. The impression of a global calamity certainly left an indelible mark on my mind." The next film that conforms to this criteria is Masaki Kobayashi's Human Condition Trilogy. Masaki Kobayashi's Human Condition Trilogy is a sprawling exploration of the human cost of war. The trilogy follows Kaji, a pacifist and socialist, as he navigates the horrors of World War II and its aftermath. The trilogy presents a stark and unflinching portrayal of the brutality and inhumanity of war. Kaji's journey is one of moral and ethical struggle, not of heroism or glory. The trilogy covers a vast range of experiences, from the labor camps to the battlefield, providing a comprehensive view of war's devastation, depicting the suffering of soldiers, prisoners, and civilians alike. Kobayashi's own experiences as a soldier who refused to fight and was subsequently imprisoned deeply influenced his work. His personal commitment to pacifism and his first-hand knowledge of war's horrors are glaringly evident throughout the trilogy. While Truffaut's assertion that there's no such thing as an anti-war film holds weight in many cases, films like Come and See, The Ascent, and the Human Condition Trilogy completely challenge this notion. They demonstrate that it is possible to create a cinematic experience that truly conveys the horrors of war without succumbing to the allure of spectacle. However, these films are extremely rare and require a delicate balance to avoid the pitfalls that Truffaut was warning against. Ultimately, the power of these films lies in their ability to make us pause and reflect more deeply on war's horrific nature and the senselessness of it all, and how dangerous it actually is to glorify it. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to subscribe. If you want to see more content like this, then support the channel by heading over to our Patreon page, where you'll get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes content, early access to videos, and so much more. Thanks again for watching the video. I'll see y'all next time.